Hey, Who fans, and welcome to the Big Blue Box podcast. My name's Gary.
My name's Adam.
And welcome to episode 424. Hey you lot, welcome back to another week and another episode. Thank you so much for coming back and checking out our review of season 2 as we rattle through each week, it feels like. We hope you've had a cracking one and that you've managed to do something Doctor Who related.
Did it properly this week. Yeah.
Not too bad. Not too bad. Last week, Adam was in there like swimwear. Absolutely obliterated me.
That's right.
As
Gone
expected.
easy on you this week. Gone easy on you.
Yeah. So another episode of season 2, bud. We'll get onto our review of that in a moment, of course. Those of you that are joining us for the first time, welcome aboard to the Big Blue Box. It's great to have you here. And we are a very long-standing Doctor Who podcast. We've been waffling about Doctor Who for many years now. So if you're new to the show and new to the podcast, and thank you so much for checking us out, welcome aboard. If you're a long time listener, one of the old grizzled ancients, then welcome back. It's great to have you all here, of course. And make sure you're following or subscribing to the podcast on your fave podcast app of choice so you don't miss a notification when new episodes drop. And we also do a monthly roundtable episode as well, where we gather the writing team and we just pick a subject about Doctor Who and we just sit down and chill and just talk about all the things to do with Doctor Who. You can also listen for free over on the website, which is bigblueboxpodcast.co.uk, and you can check out the reviews from the writing team. They've put Big Finish reviews out. They do convention roundups and all sorts of editorials. It's very cool there. There's also links to the socials. We chat Doctor Who throughout the week, quite a lot on the socials, so come and join in over there. Give us a like and a follow. And chat Doctor Who there. And we have a very cool free Discord server as well. There's a link on our website. Hop in there and chat lots of Doctor Who with some very, very cool Doctor Who fans. We've got a great little community over there. And don't forget to remember to check out my co-host channel over on YouTube. It is, of course, we all know by now, The Geek's Handbag.
That's it. Let's all say it together. Come on. The Geek's Handbag. Yep. Check out my YouTube channel. I've just new vid coming out, actually, of me going shopping. So hopefully you'll all enjoy that. For toys, I should I'm not just popping to, I'm not just popping out to get some groceries and taking you with me. It's a little shopping video about toys. So yeah, that'll be out on my channel imminently.
Yeah, I'm so glad you followed it up with shopping for toys because, not a great advert for.
Yeah, I'm just popping to Sainsbury's and other supermarkets are available.
Yes, go and check out Adam's channel. Loads of very cool geekery stuff over there. Tons of Doctor Who content, plus some other Doctor Who, just general geek stuff. And the video that Adam's talking about, he gave me a little sneak preview synopsis and some details before we recorded, and it sounds excellent. So make sure you go and sub to his YouTube channel and go and check that all out. So, how you been, bud? The last week since we last spoke, how many times have you watched our review episode?
Twice. I've watched it twice to really try and get to grips with it. I haven't done much Doctor Who related stuff this week, unless you count having a haircut. But actually, I haven't done much Doctor Who. But a friend of mine did send me some photos today. She said, "Oh, I was in a junk shop, as you are." And they had a load of Doctor Who figures. Have you got any of these? And it was like a whole cabinet of Eagle Moss figures. And there were some pretty cool ones in there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, no, some of them look really good. I'm like, you still there? She was like, no, this is 3 days ago. Oh. I was like, well, if you go back. But yeah, the Eagle Moss stuff, I did collect some of that back in the day. And some of them were good. And some were not so good, but there were some good ones, so may get her to grab some of them.
Oh,
Should
nice.
just point out, by the way, this is back in the UK, and I'm obviously in the US, so it's not like I can just pop over to have a look at this junk shop, but nice of her to tell me.
Actually, dude, this reminds me, I was meant to say this a few weeks back on the podcast, so thanks for jogging my memory. Talking of shops that sell Doctor Who stuff, you know that over the years we've commented quite frequently about Forbidden Planet and the decline in, well, I guess not just Forbidden Planet specifically, but because you and I go there quite frequently. That's, the sort of common denominator between the two of us. But the Doctor Who stuff has been on decline, hasn't it, in terms of merch?
Yeah.
And back in the day, we obviously had the Cabinet of Woe. The Grizzled Ancients will know about that one. And, so you don't really see much Doctor Who merch when you're out and about these days. But a few weeks ago, I went over they do this Star Wars event over in the shopping centre in Redditch. It's called Echo Base Live. And
cool name.
it's basically just one huge Star Wars trading event. Like 1 million stalls, 1 billion Star Wars products, vintage, new, the lot. Very, very cool. Anyway, Chip was in there for a couple of hours, picked up a few Star Wars bits, was walking back through the shopping centre, and there was a shop there. I can't remember what it's called. I think it was called the Movie and Prop Store, or the Movie Store, or something like that.
Yeah.
And mate, there was the biggest amount of Doctor Who merch I've ever seen.
Really?
Yeah. And do you know what it made me think that they had just swiped loads of stuff from the Doctor Who experience after it closed down, and just Eagle Moss, because you mentioned Eagle Moss, mate, there was like 500 Eagle Moss figures.
Wow.
Literally hundreds and hundreds of them. And they had, because when I went to the Doctor Experience, this is like, I don't know, 6-7 years ago now, I remember seeing in the official shop at the Experience, the old Doctor Who, the old teapots and the milk jugs and the shot glasses and all that. They had all of that there. They had like 20 of those each. They had.
Did they have any of those poisonous mugs of the Doctor Who faces that we learned that contained lead?
They did.
Did they have any of those? Oh,
they did.
Wow.
Yep, they had 4 or 5 of those. They had about 10 different designs of hoodies, about 30 different Doctor Who T-shirt designs. They had everything, mate. Like everything that Forbidden Planet used to do, the Experience shop used to do, Eagle Moss, the lot, mate. It was incredible.
Sounds good. Did you pick anything up?
No.
Right.
I'd already spent my budget for the day at the Star Wars event. So, I didn't pick it. But I was tempted by a few things. But actually, no, I did pick up a T-shirt because I wore that at the Capital event that me and the team went to a few weeks back. Sorry, I said a lie. I did pick up a T-shirt, but no.
What did it have on it?
It was the Cybermen, but in the Funko Pop style.
Oh, yeah.
It was one of those, yeah.
Oh, cool.
Pretty sweet.
That sounds a good shop, mate. I mean, I don't see much Doctor Who merch over here in Texas. Occasionally, I'll spot something. Weirdly and quite bizarrely, one of the few bits of merch I have seen over here, and it's in a shop which is close to me, which is full of like retro toys and stuff. I go in there quite a lot. It's called the Movie Store. And there is in a cabinet one of those mugs, the poison mugs, and it's the 4th Doctor one, the big one, the 4th Doctor head. So he's in the cabinet over here. So they made their way over to the US and probably poisoned a few people on the way. But the only other thing I've seen is, and you'll see it, anyone who watches my latest video whenever it comes out, you'll see I go into a GameStop and they had some sonic screwdrivers, and not the 15th Doctor, no, a proper Sonic. They had the 10th Doctor Sonic and the Capaldi one, that weird blue and that blue Capaldi one. They had those, which was unusual to see because they're in different packaging to the UK. So I don't know where they've come from or if they've just been hanging around forever. But yeah, I don't see that much Doctor Who merch over here. It's a bit lacking.
Yeah.
Which is good for the wallet, to be fair,
Oh, great for the wallet, mate.
Yeah.
But I know what you mean.
Yeah.
So yeah, the world of Doctor Who merch. Crazy times.
Crazy.
Yeah. Anyway, enough of all that. talking about Tat. We'll leave that to Dalek Tat, wherever he is.
Where is he?
He's gone forever.
Is he anywhere? He's not over here, is he? He's not in the US by any chance,
God,
is he?
no.
I'm
God,
not going to
no.
bump into him when I go to like Billy Bob's or somewhere, am I? See him in a Stetson at the bar.
Bubba Gumps. Oi, Dalek Tat, what you doing here?
What are
You
you
old
what's...
git.
Yeah, imagine that. Imagine going to Potbelly or somewhere or Walmart and he's just in there doing a weekly shop. What are you doing in here?
Oh, God. He's too miserable to be hanging around people, mate. He won't be in a built-up area.
That's true.
We struggled to get him onto the show and there's just two of us remotely.
That's right.
That's hard enough.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to say I miss him, but...
Yeah. He'll make an appearance one day, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Penny.
Yeah, enough of all that. Hey, enough of all this. We've got a review to get to.
That's true, yes.
What are we doing this week?
Yeah, so here we are. What episode is this? Episode 5, isn't it? And it's called The Story in the Engine.
Lagos, Nigeria. I've been expecting you.
Wait, you're all missing.
Welcome. Doctor! We need him now! It is always hungry. We must feed it. They cannot leave. No one can.
Are we under attack? Goddess! Hello?
The story. Who are you? This is my domain.
Doctor!
What the hell is this?
Cool, blimey.
Core blimey indeed.
What a trailer.
Yeah. The Story and the Engine. First broadcast the other day on the 10th of May. And it was written by Inua Ellams, directed by Michaela McPherson. It was overseen, obviously, by RTD version 2, which seems to be his name these days, RTD2. Obviously, Shuti Gatwa, Varada Sethu as Doctor and Belinda, and then about a dozen supporting cast members. And the synopsis for this one is: when the Doctor and Belinda land in Lagos for another Vindicator reading, the Doctor goes to a barbershop to meet an old friend. There, he discovers a mysterious barber trapping the patrons, feeding an engine with their stories, as the title suggests. So, mate, really interesting one this week. Very, very different to what we've seen in Doctor Who for a long time, I think, in many respects. So I'm so interested in your thoughts on this one, mate. So as usual, straight out the trap, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, a very interesting one this week, mate. And if ever an episode needed a second watching, I think this is it. Because when I was watching this with my other half, when it finished, we kind of just turned it and looked at each other and were like, what was all that about? This was confusing. This made Ghostlight look like poetry. But no, that's not to say I didn't enjoy it. It just was a very confusing watch. And I think for the first probably good 15 minutes, me and my partner were really quite engrossed in this. I thought I was liking it a lot. You know, I thought it looked visually really nice. I loved the idea of this barber shop that was kind of not where it was supposed to be. It was on the back of a spider and all this stuff. You know, cool concept, and like you said, something we haven't seen before, and I do love it, and I've said this many times before, like when Doctor Who tries stuff, whether it works or not, like the frog on the chair. People hate that poor old frog, but I like that episode because it was weird and different. And this one was certainly heading in that direction, but the problem with it is that as it went on, me and my partner were just constantly asking each other questions about what was happening. So I was like, sorry, hang on, where's the spider come from? What's that? Who's a god? What? You know, where are we now? It was just, I don't know, how the fugitive Doctor turns up. Well, hang on, blink and I nearly missed that. So what was that about? What I'm going to say, mate, is I kind of enjoyed the visuals and I really liked a lot of the ideas in this episode. If anything, I just think it had too many ideas. I think it was just trying to cram in a load of stuff, and it was very hard to follow. I can't imagine any child, for example, being able to make head or tail of this, let alone a fully grown adult. So it was confusing. It was a bit of a mess overall, but there was some stuff I really liked in it, mate. Loved all the visuals of the the cartoons or whatever coming to life in the window and all that, and this concept of having to tell stories, which I know we've seen before, like in the Rings of Akaten and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I hate to say it, mate, because I know I've said this a few weeks on the trot now. It's a little bit like all the other episodes where I really liked a lot of what I saw, but it just fell apart once again. So I don't want to be repeating myself, but it's exactly how I feel about this episode. That it just, I don't know, it just confused me. And I have to be honest, even on a second watch, I was still left quite confused by it. I definitely got a better grip of what the story was trying to tell. I just don't think it did it in a particularly good way. And it certainly wasn't helped by the fact that I don't know if it was the fact the actors were mumbling or if it was just a bad sound mix, but we both really struggled to understand and hear a lot of the dialogue. And on a second watch, I was really, really trying, and we did put the subtitles on the second watch to actually try and work out, because a lot of the plot points that I'd missed the first time round, like what the spider was, for goodness sake. I mean, I had no clue the first time watching this. It just seemed to be randomly, suddenly the barbershop was on the back of a spider, and I was like, what the heck is going on, But just to sum up, mate, it didn't frustrate me in a bad way that I didn't understand it. If anything, it was making me laugh that it was just so bonkers. I was just like, this is crazy. What is this episode? So, yeah, a really odd one, mate. I didn't dislike it. I just found it very confusing. And I feel there was probably a really good concept and story buried in the middle of this. It just struggled to get out. And I think, if anything, it just had too many ideas going on to be a comprehensible story, so it ended up being a bit of a mess. Yeah, what do you think of it?
I see. Yeah. Overall, I quite liked it. Overall, I kind of get what you're saying. It's even though we've got slightly longer episodes with this, just shy of 50 minutes, I guess. It still didn't feel long enough to explain some of what was going on. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right. I think because of that, it then tries to... It's a bit like The Rise of Skywalker. That third film in the sequel trilogy where there's so much going on, but there's just not enough runtime to tell each sort of thread sufficiently. And so you end up just feels like you're speed running through the story. And then by the time you get to the end, it's like, oh, okay, that was cool, I think. I don't know, was it cool? I don't know. I'll have to watch it again to sort of catch myself up to see what was going on. So there was a lot that I liked about it. And there was also a bit that was like, I feel like this season, every episode seems to suffer with the same thing, where it's like, the conceptually it's there. Like on paper, the ingredients, everything, it's there. But there's just something that's like it's like a piece of the jigsaw that you've put in a lovely frame, and then it's like you've bought this 5,000 piece jigsaw, and you've done it and you've framed it and you're up on the wall and you're proud of it, and then you think, hold on a minute, I've missed out a couple of pieces. That's really annoying. Yeah. Like that's really playing on my mind that, it's that there's a piece missing. And I feel that's what I'm feeling like with each episode. Like last week, it was really weird because you and I were like, I wasn't too keen on that. I wasn't too keen on that. But as we were talking through it and I was sort of reminiscing about the story that we'd just watched, I ended up thinking, actually, this actually wasn't a bad story at all. So the score ended up being okay, even though we spent the episode saying, oh, we weren't happy about this, or that wasn't great, that kind of thing. I think that's like the ebb and flow of the thought process on it. It's like for a couple of minutes when I'm thinking about this story, and as you and I are talking about it, I'm thinking, yeah, that was fantastic. That was a great bit of storytelling and it was really good. But then literally at the click of fingers, it's like, yeah, but then that bit was, what was going on with that? And that wasn't great. And it was all crammed in. And so, yeah, mate, I think, in a nutshell, this wasn't a bad episode at all. It was pretty good. There was just a few elements where for the casual viewer, see you later.
Yeah.
Like, no chance in hell. Yeah. Not a chance.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? In many ways, it was just a frustrating episode, wasn't it? Because I was, as I said, I was still, even when I was getting confused by it, I was still invested enough to stick with it, because it was very much a sort of bottle episode, wasn't it? Very much contained in the barbershop. And I know from listening to some other podcasts that a lot of people found that hard going after a time, you know, and I must admit, probably around the 35-minute mark, I was thinking, come on, this needs to go in a different direction now. I think it was around about when the doctor started to say he recognised so-and-so, and then he got in the barber chair, and then she got in the barber chair, and I was thinking, oh, this is all getting a little bit bogged down now, and nothing's really interesting is happening in the barbershop. But I did like the concept of it being somewhere where they're all trapped and the people that had gone missing were all in there, and how's the doctor going to save them? So as I said, you know, it was frustrating in that sense because I was enjoying the concept of this episode, and I love it when Doctor Who tries something different like this. But it just was getting bogged down in all the other stuff, like the gods coming in, and he's a god, he's not a god, he used to work for the god, she's a god, the doctor remembers her, but he doesn't remember her, here's the fugitive doctor, you know, it just all suddenly started to get a little bit too much for me. I was like, I just need to sort of concentrate on, let's, you know, pull it back a bit, break it down a little bit, and just concentrate on the actual story, rather than throwing in all this other stuff on top, or at least do it later, you know. I think it's just, it almost felt like we were in that barbershop trap with them and everything was being thrown at us at once rather than actually letting it play out. And maybe that is a downfall of having it all contained in a 45-minute episode. Maybe it could have worked a lot better as a two-parter. I don't know, because when the doctor breaks into the room with the big old brain at the end and starts doing all that stuff, I was thinking, this is cool, good stuff here. You know, it looked great, that brain and all that. So it just, I think maybe it's the middle part where I was just getting a bit lost, a bit confused. Belinda I thought she was trapped in the TARDIS at first, and then I realised watching it again, she'd just been left behind. The doctor just said, oh, you wait there, I'm off to get my haircut. So I couldn't understand why the TARDIS kept doing that alarm thing, and then that kind of went nowhere. You know what I mean? There was a lot of stuff that kind of went nowhere. There was a lot of stuff being thrown at us that didn't sort of have a payoff or didn't get explained. And I think that's why I found it sort of frustrating overall.
I read you, dude. But I can imagine it's, so for, I'm wondering where because the rationale for making this type of episode, when I mentioned the casual viewer would have been sort of lost in the weeds a little bit. I guess at this point, when you're halfway through the season, you're allowed that, I guess. If this was episode 1 or 2, then any newcomers to the show would have been like, I have no clue what's going on at all. No. Just because we had on the surface, like you said, it's kind of an isolated story, isn't it? I can't imagine we're going to see the barber turn up again, or Abby or Abina, you know, but I don't think those guys are going to turn up again in future Doctor Who. Big Finish, present company accepted.
Yeah.
I don't know. Big Finish will probably do something with it. I don't know. But even as like regulars, you know, long-time fans like you and I watching it, I thought to myself, you know, this is, because you mentioned it's an isolated story, but I think at this point in the series, you could probably get away with that. We're over halfway through. So, you know, newcomers to everything. If you're not clued up on Doctor Who yet, tough, you know, tough noogies. It's your own fault for not going back and watching it all or reading the books and stuff like that. I jest, of course. But I think these isolated stories, they can be cool. And it was a bit of a Belinda-like story as well, even though she was in it. I only remember her from the beginning and the end, really. But the rest of it like dived into like the Doctor's previous memories. We saw a little show reel of the previous incarnations of the Doctor.
Always nice, yeah.
Yeah, we had of course, we'll get onto it in a second. We had Joe Martin back as the fugitive Doctor. And, you know, all these things where it really dives into like the Doctor's history and all that stuff. So even as a regular viewer of Doctor Who, I found it a bit sort of, speed runny. having to go through all these bits, which I think is why when you and I review these episodes, we always watch them at least twice, don't we? So we said this loads of times, but we try and watch it once as a fan and then the second time as a reviewer, or opposite order, whichever way you want to do it. But mate, I think at some point I will watch this episode again in the future, but I think another watch is going to be needed, just to sort of cement the ideas in your head and totally, see what's going on and whatnot. But
I think if I was to watch this in the future, mate, I'd watch it with the mindset of just not trying to worry too much about explanations and just take the story for what it is. Because I think once you start trying to work out exactly what's going on, like what is the spider, what's the web, why is the barbershop in like this dimension, how did the barber do that in the first place? If you just stop trying to sort of actually work it out as a story, I think it could be quite enjoyable, because as I said, visually really lovely, actually. Love all the animation stuff and the sets and everything, and it was nicely directed. But yeah, as I did compare it a bit to Ghostlight earlier, which I think is kind of fair. And I just mean that in the sense of, Ghostlight suffered from poor not poor editing, but it had to be edited down to fit, the time slot. So it lost a lot of stuff. I think this, in a sense, has the same issue. Because if you were a casual viewer, if you were just tuning into this, the Doctor talks about these people that are in the barbershop as if he's known them forever. I don't know when he's been going to this barbershop, but you know what I mean? So you could be forgiven for thinking we've seen these people before. And so as a casual viewer and someone who watches this all the time, that in itself is a bit confusing, because we don't know any of these people. We're just told that the Doctor knows them. So we kind of have to take that on face value that, these are the Doctor's friends. And there's no relationship been built up. Do you know what I mean? If we'd have met them previously, even if it was briefly in some previous episodes, you could have even had the Doctor just popping back to the barbershop in one episode, just as a scene to set this up further down the line, you know what I mean? But to just throw us in at the deep end and be told, this is a place the Doctor likes to go, these are the people he likes to hang around with, bar. It was a little bit like tell, not show a lot as well, which I think also probably didn't help in establishing a connection with the characters a bit. Yeah,
that makes sense, mate. I do like the, you mentioned about the Doctor going back to this barbershop, presumably many times, that we've not seen. I did quite like the setup with that, though, at the beginning. So once you get past the rinse and repeat with Belinda, we've had every episode,
Mate, the first thing my partner said, and I thought of you, the first thing he said when we were watching this was, God, this is getting boring. Then keep saying that every week. I'm like, I know, because it's literally the same dialogue. Oh my God. It was not a great start, that.
Yeah. Once you get past that bit with Belinda doing the whole,
get me home.
Yeah, I did quite like the way that, the entire episode itself is obviously set in the way it deals with people of colour and the African culture and that sort of stuff. I think that's a really lovely way of sort of moving Doctor Who over to the sort of adjacent storytelling area. Because, and what I mean by that is the way that they've handled race issues so far since Ncuti has been the Doctor is it's been quite, it's been reactive to something, hasn't it? So in the previous episodes like Dot and Bubble and, when the Doctor's he's witnessed racism firsthand and he's then reacted to that. And it's like, it's almost like shock value for the, for the viewer. It's like, it's just one of those things where now that the Doctor is a person of colour, that comes with a set of unfortunate challenges. And the way that they did this at the beginning was quite nice, where the Doctor kind of said, I can't remember exactly what he said, but now that he's a doctor or a black man, he doesn't always fit in with, the rest of the world. Presumably he means Earth, the way he did before as a white Doctor, which is completely understandable based on those previous, bits I just mentioned. And so when he says that, but here though, in this location, that's not a concern. It's not a worry. He can just freely be accepted. And I think Belinda even says, my nan was like that, had viewpoint where she took me to India for that very reason and that sort of thing. So I think that was a really nice way to bring you into that environment rather than just the TARDIS landing in Nigeria. They come out the doors and it's like, oh, we're in Nigeria. This is weird. The TARDIS is playing up again, or that kind of thing that we've had many times before. I think it was nice that they just addressed that right off the bat. And that's the reason why the Doctor, he's just beaming, isn't he? When he realises that where they are and they can go and visit his mate Omo in the barber shop, he's just beaming and it's great and all that stuff. So culturally, the whole African culture and that sort of stuff, it was really well done. And like you said, the direction and the design and everything, really, really well done. And, as they're just walking through the markets and doing all that, very, very cool.
But it was nice to give the Doctor and Belinda that moment at the start as well, to actually bond and to start to get to know them a little bit, because this is the other thing that's very much in the back of my mind at the minute is we've got 3 episodes left and I don't feel like Belinda has been utilised as a companion very well at all up to this point. I think we've needed a few more moments where they just stop and have a chat and let's get to know them, let's get to know Belinda at the same time as the Doctor. So that and it was a nice moment. But then sadly she was left behind in the TARDIS for a lot of the episode. So again, it did feel like a bit of a wasted episode for Belinda because she didn't really get anything to do. On the plus side, we did get the Doctor telling that nice story about Belinda. That's, when she was a nurse and how she's trying to get home, but she has to stay late to save someone. That actually worked quite well for me. I thought, oh yeah, we're actually getting to warm towards Belinda by seeing this sort of scene, getting to see her life. But again, mate, I guess when they made this series, we assumed that another series would be following it, which it still might be, but I just don't feel like we've got enough time to get to know Belinda as a character that's going to stand out unless something dramatic happens over the next 3 episodes. Because even in this one, I think she got a bit left behind, to be fair. But it was nice. I liked that moment between her and the Doctor. Just would like to have seen a bit more of that. And if he gets that blooming gadget out again, that stupid gadget, that he gets at every week when he's trying to get her home. What? Oh, I want to break it over my knee. Actually, the clip they've just... go on.
You're not a fan of the Vindicator, no?
I think I didn't mind it to begin with, but I know you've said this a few times, but it is very much rinse repeat. TARDIS lands, get that gadget out, unfold it, pretend to look at it. Oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. Even in the clip they've released today, the preview clip from the Interstellar episode that's coming up, that's the clip they showed. He gets out the TARDIS, gets the thing out. Oh, let's test it. Oh, we're nearly there. It's like, oh my gosh. I'll be really glad to see the back of that thing. I hope when it finally does what it's meant to do, he opens the TARDIS door and boots it as far into space as he possibly can.
I'm sure it will all come to fruition in the finale, what that actually is, mate.
Yeah, I'm sure it will.
I'm sure. Yep. Mm. Moving a bit further into the episode then, let's talk about a couple of things that were very cool, and then we'll pick up a couple of bits that we weren't so keen on. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I've already mentioned like the cultural aspect and that stuff is I loved all that. And sometimes when modern franchises do that, I think it's really, really cool that people of color can sort of identify with something that's predominantly white in its sort of delivery over the years. Mm-hmm. So I had that a lot with anyone that's listened to a podcast for years will know that I'm married to a woman of colour, and our son, this happened when Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse came out, the animated film, that was not centred so much around Peter Parker, but more around Miles Morales, a person of colour. So that was a really cool way of having, when you're in that situation, it's like, okay, this is really, really cool to have a bit of representation and a bit of mainstream media. And this is exactly what's happened with Doctor Who in this episode, where other than Ncuti, a black actor, being in the role, that removed, it was pretty cool to have an entire episode around that. And I think I'm getting this right, but the writer was a good friend, or is a good friend of Ncuti's.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, and I think he recommended him to Russell T Davies and said, look, this could be really cool. idea if we get him on board and do all that stuff. So having, it was just really cool to see that. So I love that aspect of it. The other thing I really liked was a couple of performances we'll get onto in a moment, but the first half an hour, the first 30 minutes for me were very, very cool in terms of having a lot of unanswered questions. So although we're saying on one hand, yep, this episode falls foul a little bit because it was confusing in some ways and we didn't know what was going on. When you were watching it for the first time and you're sort of half an hour in, you were kind of expecting the payoff for some of those things anyway. Some of them didn't quite work out, but up to that point, it was really cool to have this mystery around who the barber actually is, and who Abby is, and what exactly is going on with the giant, this barber shop that's in sort of trans-dimensional on one hand from the inside, but on the outside it's still in Lagos and all that stuff. So that was, I really liked the mystery around those things until the doctor presses the barber about who exactly who are you, and I think he tells him a bit of a yarn, and then the doctor sees through it and starts cracking up and get to the bottom of it. But up to that point, dude, really loved that whole what's going on. It was intriguing in a good way.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I meant when I said we were invested in this for a good sort of 20 minutes. I think it had a good atmosphere to it, even though a lot of questions are being thrown out. It was definitely pulling me in, and I did feel a certain amount of threat and tension, which I know a lot of people didn't, but I did. Like with the barber, when he's in the chair and he switches the clippers on, you're like, I don't know. I felt there was a good atmosphere to this story, even though I couldn't really understand exactly what was going on. And I did hope that by the end of it I would, but that just wasn't the case. But I did sort of enjoy the ride for the most part, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Up until that point. Cool. Just going back to what you're saying about, the episode obviously being, a contained episode and the whole cast is people of colour and everything. A lot of people have picked up on the line, which confused me as well, where Ncuti said it was the first time he'd had, been in a body that was a black body, a person of colour, which obviously is a bit confusing, especially as we get to see the fugitive doctor later, and we know that the girl at the portal was a child of colour. So, I mean, I don't know. That line seems odd, and I don't think Russell... I'm sure Russell looks over the scripts, right? He wouldn't have let that slip through.
Yeah, he didn't say he was the first doctor of colour. He said he was the first black man.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. A few people have picked up on it, and I thought it at the time too, that when he said that, I thought, well, no, you're not. But
actually, dude.
But then he doesn't remember the fugitive, does he? I don't know.
Well, that's just about to say that does lead into something that is a bit of a conundrum. We might as well mention it now, which is the fugitive doctor, right? So I'm just going back to what you said. I'm pretty sure he says being a man of color, a black man. I don't think he says black. I could be wrong, but
I think he says
even
first time having a black body. I think.
Oh, right. Okay. So that's the conundrum, isn't it? Is that he's not supposed to remember the fugitive doctor. That's the whole point, isn't it, of that storyline with the 13th Doctor. 13th, 14th, Jodie's Doctor. In that the fugitive Doctor was pre-Hartnell. And she was part of, what was it, the Division?
The Division, yeah.
Yeah, and around all that storyline, with memories being erased and all that stuff, the Doctor's not supposed to remember anything about that. It wasn't until that storyline, with Jodie's Doctor, that they started to piece that together a little bit, and she starts to become aware of the fugitive Doctor. So in this one, it's not until he sees Abby or Abina that triggers his memory a little bit, I think. And but up until that point, I think he was just going along the lines of, not really remembering who she was. I mean, the fugitive Doctor, I mean.
Yeah, no, that kind of makes sense, I guess, because I've kind of forgotten what happened with all that. It was all put in the fob watch, wasn't it, and dropped into the middle of the TARDIS. So I don't know. It's all still a little bit hazy, that whole storyline. But were you surprised to see the fugitive Doctor turn up? Did you gasp? Were you like, oh my gosh, she's back?
Yeah, just because I didn't expect to see her back.
Yeah.
Well, when we went to the Capitol event, Jo Martin was there, and we attended a panel with her, a Q&A. And she
didn't let it slip, did she?
She didn't, not on the nose, but she did have a little smile on her face when one of the audience members asked her, the last time that we saw the fugitive doctor on screen, is that the last time we're going to see her?
Right.
And she kind of had a little grin on her. She didn't say anything, but she had a little smile. And everybody just sort of took that as, okay, we'll read between the lines in this scenario, you know. So, but I'd completely forgotten about that watching this episode. So yeah, when she popped up, I was like, okay, right. So we're back to sort of to this thing with the fugitive doctor. So how my initial thought was, once the episode had finished, was it was really cool to see Jo Martin because she was great. But is Russell going to dive down into some of this timeless child stuff a bit more?
Yes, that's what I'm thinking, mate. Yeah, because I was pleased to see her. I thought, oh, fugitive doctor, wasn't expecting that. But I was surprised how brief the scene was. It was like, it really was a blink and you'll miss it, to the point that I actually was so, I think actually turned to me off and spoke over the scene. It's like, oh my God, Jo, fugitive doctor's back. And then turned and she'd already gone off the screen. And I was like, oh, hang on, why was she back? What was that? So, I had to go back and rewatch it to find out what she actually said and why she was there, because it was so brief. And I am, like you, hoping that there's more to this and perhaps she's going to turn up again in the final, because I would hate to think they brought her back, got her all dressed up in that outfit, which, I mean, gosh, it looks, I'd be baking under all those clothes. She's wearing so much stuff. You know what I mean? Get her all dressed up to do that 5-second clip. Come on. That's, I don't think that's fair on her as an actor. She's got such potential to be a good doctor, that to just have her turn up every now and again, say one line and vanish, it's she deserves more, mate, really, is what I'm saying. So I am hoping this plays into the bigger picture, because I don't know, if that's all we get, to me it feels such a waste. But it was nice to see her make a little cameo this week. But I definitely hope there's more to it, mate. I really do.
Yeah, I would say so. Judging by Jo Martin's response at that Q&A,
yeah.
I don't think this is the last time her character gets some screen time. Yeah.
Do you think we'll see her in the final?
Oh, I'm not sure, mate. Don't know about that, but I don't think it's the last time we've seen her on screen. Yeah.
Have you checked out any of the Big Finish stuff, just out of interest? I mean, I haven't, but I'm curious to hear what she's like on Big Finish. Just wondered if you'd delved in yet. No, I might do that at some point.
Yeah. But her cameo was really cool. And it also was a good visual way of explaining why the Doctor recognised Abby. So we dived immediately into when the Doctor does remember. So this is after the barber tries to spin a bit of a yarn to the Doctor about who he actually is. And then when the Doctor unravels that, he then, when Abby, gives him a bit of a, if looks could kill moment again, he sort of clicks in his brain, and, that's when we have the thing, okay, this happened like way, way, way back. Like way back. Like, I don't want to open a can of worms here, dude, but this obviously happened like way before Hartnell. And those of us that are, very much staunch, Doctor Who is Doctor Who from the first Doctor. And, some fans are like, and I mean it when I say this, Hartnell as in the first Doctor. If you're that type of fan, then you're not going to be too keen on this. But, if you buy into this whole timeless child thing and the Doctor having many, many incarnations before Hartnell, then this happened. Long time ago.
Yes, yeah.
So yeah,
it's a can of worms. I mean, we could probably do a whole podcast on that. So perhaps best leave it there. But she wasn't the only one to return, mate. There was another returning character, which took me by surprise, probably even more. Is that we saw Baby Poppy from Space Babies. Now, I'm telling you now, if we are getting a sequel to Space Babies, that could be me done. But yeah, we saw Poppy back, and it is actually in the credits listed as Poppy from Space Baby, so it is supposed to be the same character. Now, what's that about? And do you know what? I'm just going to say quickly, I kind of like the mystery. I hope it's going to have some sort of payoff, but what was baby Poppy doing back?
I honestly don't know, dude. That was a weird one for me, because it's not even the Doctor that sees Poppy. It's Belinda. So what's the connection between Space Babies and Poppy and Belinda? Belinda wasn't even around at this point in the Doctor's time stream. So, I'm not sure what the connection is there. It felt to me like, in some weird horror films or sci-fi films, whatever, this has happened quite a few times where somebody has seen somebody that guides them somewhere, and then it turns out that it's been like a hallucination or figment of their mind or something like that.
Yeah. So
it felt like that. It felt like Poppy was there for a reason, to sort of guide Belinda to the barbershop to find the Doctor. But I'm not sure why it was that character from that episode. Like, what is the I can't join the dots basically with that one at the moment. But again, it's something that might pop up in finale, future episode. I don't know.
Could it be, because I've only just remembered, there is another underlying arc mystery, which actually has not been mentioned much this series, which is surprising. But don't forget, there was that whole setup, this mystery set up in Belinda's first episode about the fact that she looks like the character that was in Boom. And the Doctor was like, oh, there's a similarity. That's not been mentioned since, has it? That whole mystery? That's kind of been forgotten about. I mean, I'm assuming that's going to get answered. Otherwise, why make it into a story in the first episode? So could it play into that? I don't know. I'm intrigued to see where that's going. I hope that's not just going to fizzle out and be forgotten about, or because it's odd that hasn't been mentioned, isn't it? Like, we've mentioned the fact that the Doctor every week, it's a bit rinse and repeat. Oh, I want to go home. Oh, I can't get you home. We're nearly there. But instead of having that every week, we could have been reminded about, you look a bit like, what were they called, that character? Monday or something? I don't know. Could have been, that storyline could have been brought up to remind the viewer. Because I bet, had you even remembered that storyline until I just mentioned it? Because I'd completely forgotten about it until you started talking about, Poppy, and could that lead somewhere else? Which triggered my memory that, we've got another thread that hasn't been answered. So that storyline's fizzled out a bit.
Yeah, and we're running out of episodes as well. Next, I don't think anything's going to happen next week because we've got that intergalactic song con. It's like Eurovision on steroids.
Oh, that's going to be such an interesting review next week.
So yeah, I honestly don't. That to me looks like another isolated story to me, based on the trailer. So I could be wrong, of course, have been many, many times, but I don't think there's going to be any big bombshells dropped next week. I think we're going to have to wait for the next, presumably a 2-part finale the week after that kicks off.
Yeah, I mean, the finale's got a lot of stuff to land, doesn't it? The Mrs. Flood thing as well.
Yeah, she wasn't in it that much this week. She was only in it in Belinda's flashback, when the Doctor was telling the story of Belinda and how she's such a good person and lovely and stayed with that woman, saved her life and all that. Mrs. Flood just walks past her and says hello, and she's come to get a medication, and that's it. We don't have any big appeals. Yeah. So, mate, what was that about? Every episode up to now, we've had a nice little, very intriguing moment with Mrs. Flood where she's been really cryptic and a little bit sort of borderline sinister in a way. But none of that this week, just a very fleeting, hello. So, I don't know.
I'm not sure how else they could have put her into it. I'm trying to think now. Unless they had her riding the spider on the back. Yeah.
Yeah, she could have been the spider itself. Just a big face on the front.
That would have been even more. I mean, it was a bonkers episode. Why not,
Yeah. Let's move on. Just let's rattle through just a couple of things that we liked and didn't like before we put a score on it. I really liked the barber character, though, to begin with. At the beginning of the episode, there was a few scenes where it's got the it's got Omo in the chair and he's telling a story. And then you got the other guys in the barbershop. You never see the barber's face. They sort of had him cut off screen. You only saw his body and like the lower part of his face and stuff. It's not until the doctor turns up that they reveal his face. And I really liked his character, man. Arion Bakari, that guy was brilliant in this. Really liked him.
Unsettling, wasn't he? He played it really well, I thought, as the villain. I found him quite creepy.
Yeah. What I liked about him the most was his vulnerability, because to begin with, he plays up this bit of a character, doesn't he? He's got this bit of false bravado about him, and then the doctor presses him, and he comes up with this story like he's actually one of the gods. He says that he sort of rattles off this thing where he said that he himself was what are the gods like, Anansi and Loki, and tries to scare everybody into thinking that he's this god. But it turns out he was just working for the gods. He's a bit of a demigod where he's got sort of partial sort of powers, if you like, and that enabled him to build this thing called the Nexus, where he was really proud of this thing with the Nexus, and he basically wanted to be like the ultimate storyteller. So he built this thing where he could connect like culture and stories and myths and everything, called it the Nexus, presented it to the gods, and they were just like, yeah, whatever. Just very dismissive. And so he wants to take revenge and, get them cancelled out of human culture. But what he doesn't realise is by doing that, he's going to unravel human existence, essentially, because humans, rely on gods as part of their everyday life and culture and everything, and their belief system. So when the doctor sort of sees through that and breaks him down, he's so vulnerable from that point. And then especially in the last 5 minutes of the episode, when they're outside, he gets like a second chance, doesn't he? Like everyone's very forgiving, and wants to give him a second chance, and he's overwhelmed a little bit. So hats off and big round of applause to Arion Bakari. Loved his performance, mate.
Yeah, no, I think he was very good in it, actually. And I mean, a few people have pointed out as well, just something that I noticed as well, that, he did get a redemption arc, and it did work for his character, but I guess it kind of, after the last couple of weeks where the doctor has, laughed at somebody dying, given a big old sort of speech to someone in prison and stuff, he was very forgiving towards this character. But I don't know, to me, that's more Doctor-like. So I didn't mind that, but I do get why people have picked up that, the Doctor was a lot more forgiving this week towards, the bad guy. But to me, that's more Doctorish, mate. So, I actually, whereas I've criticised Ncuti a little bit the last couple of weeks, I found him more Doctorish in this episode. I liked him in this episode a lot more than I have the last couple of weeks. What I would have liked to have seen, though, is a bit more of the friendship between him and Omo, because I didn't really feel much chemistry between those two, although they were both, good in their parts. I just thought this is supposed to be this doctor's, best friend or whatever, or someone he's got to know really well. And I felt like, again, and I think this is down to the timing of the episode, do you know what I mean? In terms of it was just a bit rushed. And maybe it would have been nice if we'd have seen those two in a previous episode, so we already knew Omo. Do you know what I mean? It just didn't feel the friendship or relationship between the two of them. And therefore, I found it really odd when the doctor just seemed to get cross with Omo out of nowhere. I thought that was a bizarre scene. Again, I thought I'd missed something on a first watch. I actually turned to my other half and was like, why is he having to go at Omo for? I didn't get it. And then on a second watch, there isn't really a build up to that. But I think these little niggles are just part of the whole trying to cram everything into 45 minutes. It's like, the doctor needs to get cross now so that he opens the door and we realise he's not, he can't escape and all that sort of thing. So, yeah, but that's something that could have breathed more in maybe a two-parter. I think the friendship between those two.
Yeah, that's very true. I think that's exactly what it is with the runtime and trying to squeeze some stuff in. Yeah. And interesting as well that you say that in the last couple of episodes and prior in this season, the Doctor not acting quite doctory. that we'd expect, like with celebrating someone's death, all this sort of thing. His reaction to Omo, that was his turn to be undoctory in this one for me a little bit, where it felt like just at the, drop of a hat, he's just snapped on his mate, and it's not like Omo.
That's true. Yeah,
it's not like Omo had summoned the Doctor into a trap knowingly.
Yeah,
this was just circumstance. The Doctor had turned up out the blue as a coincidence at this point, and has stumbled into this problem that his mate's in. So I felt like that was a little bit unjustified. So, it's not like he was entrapped into this situation. So I don't know.
No, I absolutely agree with you, mate. It was very clunky. I do absolutely agree with you. Yeah.
I really liked Michelle Asante as Abina, and it was really cool. It was it's the classic old, a woman scorned, that old fable, there's nothing, I don't know what the full saying is, but essentially, a woman scorned is not to be trifled with, and holds a bit of a grudge. So it all goes back to this thing with the Fugitive Doctor, doesn't it, where there was this bet that, if the Doctor loses the bet or something like that, or if Abina lost the bet, then they'd have to marry the Doctor and they'd go off and stuff. And the Doctor wasn't having it. And Joan Martin's Doctor said, quite nicely, and, I'm sorry, darling, but I had my own beep going on at the time. Yeah. I had stuff going on. So, and that all comes good. But she played that character in two halves really well. The first 2/3 of the story, where she played that very betrayed, not happy with the Doctor at all. If looks could kill, not good. And then in the last third, where she kind of realises that she's been lied to, although she's in cahoots with the barber, she's been lied to essentially, and it's the outcome that he's told her is not the actual outcome that's going to happen if he goes through with the plan. So, she's a bit more forgiving, and then, forgives the Doctor. And then at the end, she's very happy and goes on about her business. So, but I really liked her performance as well, mate. Thought she was good.
Yeah, I'll be honest, she got a little bit lost in the mix the first time I watched this, but I definitely appreciated more her performance in the second watch. Yeah.
And I don't know the characters' names, but the dudes that were in the barbershop that we see throughout the majority of the episode, there's sort of not one that stands out, but they've all got their sort of individual personalities. I think they even say that when they're telling the Doctor who they are and the people that they're missing on the outside, and they can't wait to get back to and stuff. It was really cool to see that, sort of band of mates who are petrified of what's going to happen to them, but at the same time, they're sort of chilling out in the barbershop and not sort of going on. It kind of links back into the whole the black culture thing with barbershops. Anyone that's seen the Pixar film Soul from a few years ago.
Great film. Yeah.
Really good. If you've ever dived into the making of that film, one of the co-directors, a guy called Kemp Powers, he was basically saying that as a black man, I wanted to try and get, some kind of culture into the film. And he said one of the best sort of social interactions is in a barbershop. If you go into a black barbershop, people spend hours in there, get their hair cut, and then they're just in there for another few hours, just trading stories, hanging out, gossiping, all the rest of it. So this really plays into that cultural thing as well. So that was cool. So like I said, I don't know the whole individual character names, but those guys that were just in the barbershop, that was a really cool vibe when they were all, especially at the end when they're all smiling and laughing, and it's a bit of a feel good at the end. Yeah.
Yeah, as an ensembled cast, I think everyone, although those guys didn't stand out, they definitely all worked together to create that sort of atmosphere, didn't they? Which worked really well. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, we've spoken about Ncuti and Varada Sethi. So she's not in it a great deal. She has a few lines, doesn't she? But nothing too crazy. And then Ncuti, we've spoken about his Doctor in this one. Is there anyone else you want to mention, dude, before anything else? The only other thing I do want to mention, dude, is Murray Gold's music again. Mm-hmm. We've gone back to generic sci-fi a little bit. and a bit too loud in the mix. I know it's not Murray's fault, but whoever's doing the audio mixes on this one, I don't know. I think they want to work on Marvel films. I think that's their vibe. Yeah. They want to do like massive high action cinema style, sound mixes. But yeah, it's. Did you say you put subtitles on, mate? The second time.
The second time, I mean, I thought the audio mix was dreadful this week, and I don't think it was just I don't think it's necessarily the music drowning out the dialogue. Murray's music, by the way, fine this week, nothing amazing, but it was nice. But the actual sound mix of the audio, even in the quieter moments, as I said earlier, I don't know if it was the actors mumbling or just a really bad sound mix, but it was bad. Unless my ears are finally gone, which wouldn't surprise me, but I really struggled to hear what was being said a lot of the time. So I put the subtitles on the second watch to actually try and get to grips with what was being said.
Same. It was like that. We've had that this season though, mate. It seems like each episode they've had a bit, so I've had to rewind, hit the old back by 10 seconds and try and pick out what someone said.
Yeah, it's a common thing with today's television, how they make it. I don't know why, because this has been happening for years, isn't it? Where people have said, music's too loud, I can't hear it. I mean, when I go back and watch the Series 1 DVD, the Eccleston, the sound mix is really bad at times. The music's, blaring out, and then you have to turn it down, and you turn it back up to hear the dialogue. So it's, I don't know, how is it still being made like this? It's as if they think everyone's got 5.1 sound systems in their house, I'm pretty sure that's how they mix it. They must have in their big studio, they must have real good surround sound, and it probably sounds great. But when you're watching it on just a normal television, it's not good. The only other thing I've got on my list, mate, is I just put. I thought it was interesting. The Doctor says the TARDIS cuts his hair. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
I'd like to see how that works. And I did think the whole thing. And again, this is a real thing that they, that happens, and they put it into the episode, and was quite interesting to see was when they, braided the Doctor's hair to make a map. I thought it was, that was a lovely idea, and something that, as I said, I think they used to do. So it's quite educational, and I thought it was a nice way to actually wrap up the episode and actually have him escape by having the map in his hair and stuff. So I thought it was really cool.
Agreed on that. Yeah, and the actual design of the spider and stuff, walking through on its web and all that stuff is sort of symbolically very cool.
He actually called it the World Wide Web, didn't he? I mean, he had to.
Come on.
Okay, come on.
Yeah, that was a little bit obvious, wasn't it? Like, okay.
Yeah.
Writers doing writery things. For the sake of the viewer to, we need to make sure the viewer gets what we're talking about in this line of dialogue. So we'll go right on the nose. We'll go really over the top obvious. And,
very on the nose. Yeah.
Dude, the audio mix is done by a third-party company.
Well, they should be sacked.
No lie. Bang Post-Production in Cardiff have handled the post audio mixing, etc. And interestingly enough, though, they handled series 2 of the Sarah Jane Adventures, and that was okay. And series 1 of Class. So, mate, go back and watch Class all from the beginning.
Oh, I'd love to.
And let us know what it's like, the audio, please.
Yeah, I'll do that straight away, mate. As soon as we finish, I'll get it on. Yeah. Oh, damn. I don't think they have it over here in the US. What a shame.
Oh, no. Shame.
I'll have to buy the Blu-ray.
Right. Anything else on the notes? Let's have a look. I was just going to pick up on the cool design for the big brain at the back of the barber shop, which was, and the beating heart, which is the barber's, thing, and all that was pretty good. Oh, and I really liked the way that the Doctor had finished off the whole the engine that needed this fuel via way of stories, where he used Hemingway's short 6-word story, and he did it in a way that was like I am born, I am, and I'm born and stuff. So essentially just overloading the spider's cognitive ability to process that, and it just went into overload, and that was pretty sweet.
Yeah, I like the brain, mate. I got flashbacks to the whole time in the Rani brain, when she had it up in that room. Kind of reminded me of that.
Oh, yeah.
So, but visually, I really like this episode, mate. I think visually it was lovely. All the art stuff and the brain and all that. It's all good. It looked good as an episode, I thought.
Yes. All right, let's whack a score on it then, dude. She's go first.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 6.5 this week. I think the writer he's delivered a good script, but I think Russell, and we all know he likes to get his fingers in and, put his own little bits into the script. I think Russell should have said, right, you've delivered a good script here, but I need to just, make a couple of little alterations to make this work. Because to me, it was close to being, quite a good story, but just got too muddled. So I can't really go any higher than that. 6.5.
6.5. Okay, I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10.
7?
Yes, I quite like this one. It wasn't... there was a lot to like about it, as I said at the beginning, and I loved some of the performances. And the overall, the story was reasonably good, and I loved the cultural setting and all that stuff. It was really cool. But I can't go any higher than that just because of, again, what I mentioned earlier, where it feels like it's there. It's almost there. But it's just getting stuck in a certain gear in terms of narrative and some pieces sort of, slotting into place. So I'm watching it in little pockets of brilliance and I'm thinking, yeah, this bit's good and that bit's good. But when I finish watching it, I'm like, okay, that was cool. That was good. I enjoyed it. But I'm not walking away thinking that was amazing. Like that was absolutely amazing. And I'm itching to watch next week. I'm just not feeling that right now. But that aside, I do think this was a solid watch. So I'm going to stick with a 7.
7. Talking to next week, mate, are you a Eurovision fan? I get the feeling you're not.
Of course I'm not, mate. I think it's the most boring I know you like it, but I think I get so bored, mate. Honestly.
I have, in previous years, I have enjoyed Eurovision quite a lot. I've been to a couple of Eurovision parties. I can't remember. I don't know. It's going to be an interesting one next week. I think it's a genius idea to actually do a Doctor Eurovision episode before Eurovision. How that will pay off, we shall see. I'm actually really looking forward to next week, or this week even.
This week.
This week's.
Indeedy. Yes. Okay then. So, on that note, on a song note, let's end it there for episode 424, mate.
Ta-da!
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Big Blue Box podcast. That was 424 and our review of the story and the engine, where it was a 6.5 from him and a 7 from me. We'll be back next week to review this week's episode of the Ryland's big Doctor Who debut in the
He's the master. I'm calling it now.
He's the master, is he?
Well, he's got a beard and a moustache. He must be.
Oh, we shall see. It's the last one in the series before Russell takes back writing duties.
Cheers.
So we will see what goes on with that one. But stay tuned for our review of that next week. You can do that by making sure you are following along in whatever podcast app of choice you listen to your podcasts on. That way you won't miss a notification when it drops. And you can listen to all the back catalogue and all that stuff from many years of us waffling about Doctor Who. You can also listen online over at bigblueboxpodcast.co.uk. You can also check out the reviews from the writing team and their editorials, etc. Links to the show notes, links to the socials, should I say, are on the website, and the link to the Discord server. Hop in there and chat lots of Doctor Who goodness with other Who fans. Don't forget to remember to check out my co-host channel once again on YouTube. Once again, it is The Geek's Handbag.
The Geek's Handbag, also on all the socials under the same name, The Geek's Handbag.
Go and check him out. So yes, we will be back next week, and who knows what's going to happen in next week's review. I really don't know, but we look forward to it nonetheless. So until then, my name's Gary.
My name's Adam.
And remember,